Hello everyone. Today our topic is endocrinology. What is this endocrinology? The body is majorly maintained by the or controlled by the two types of the systems. One is endocrine system and another one is nervous system. Nervous system is that in the sense is under nervous control, and whereas come to the endocrine system is in the hormonal control. The hormone. What is hormone? Hormone is nothing but is a chemical substance. So which regulates different organs and whatever the functions provided to that particular hormones. Hormone is a chemical substance. By its chemical type of the stimulus, it maintains that particular function. And these hormones are majorly from the different types of the glands like pituitary gland, and another one is thyroid gland, parathyroid gland, adrenal gland, pancreas, exocrine part and endocrine part. Two parts are there in the pancreas. Exocrine part of the pancreas secretes digestive juices and endocrine part of the pancreas secretes hormones, and like that the pancreas and adrenal gland, these glands are also called as suprarenal glands and these glands provides different kinds of the hormones. And let us see what are the hormones secreted by the different types of the glands and its hormones. And first come to the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is a major gland which stimulates and inhibits different organs for its secretion of the hormones and inhibition of the hormones. Like that, the first one is thyrotropin releasing hormone, and next one is dopamine, and next one is growth hormone releasing hormone, growth hormone inhibitory hormone, and gonadotropin releasing hormone, and next one is corticotropin releasing hormone, and oxytocin and vasopressin. This vasopressin is also called as ADH. Okay, and next one is thyroid gland. This thyroid gland is situated in the neck part here. Okay, and this secretes three types of the hormones. One is T3, that is also called as triiodothyrosin, and another one is T4, that is also called as tetraiodothyrosin, and next one is calcitonin. Three types of the hormones secreted by the thyroid gland. And next is parathyroid gland, which secretes PTH, parathormone. And next one is pineal gland, which secretes melatonin. Not melanin, it is melatonin. Pineal gland, the smallest gland in the body, so it is just beside of the hypothalamus. And next one is pituitary gland. This pituitary gland divides into two parts. One is anterior pituitary and another one is posterior pituitary. Come to the anterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary secretes growth hormone and TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, and next ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH it is, and LH, luteinizing hormone, FSH, follicular stimulating hormone, and prolactin. 6 hormones are secreted by the pituitary gland, especially anterior pituitary. Okay, and posterior pituitary secretes oxytocin and vasopressin. These two are actually secreted by the hypothalamus and poured into the posterior pituitary. Later on we'll come to know what it is. Okay, and next one is liver. Liver secretes insulin-like growth hormone or the growth factor. And next one is angiotensinogen, angiotensin and thrombopoietin. And next, duodenum secretes secretin and the CCK, cholecystokinin. And next one is kidney secretes renin, erythropoietin, calcitriol, and next one is thrombopoietin. Okay, and next, stomach secretes gastrin and ghrelin and somatostatin, histamine and endothelin. Okay, and next, pancreas, endocrine part of the pancreas secretes insulin, glucagon, somatostatin. And next one is adrenal glands. Adrenal gland is divided into two parts. One is adrenal cortex and adrenal medulla. Adrenal cortex secretes mineralocorticoids, glucocorticoids and the sex hormones. Nothing but androgens. And adrenal medulla secretes adrenaline, noradrenaline and the dopamine. Three hormones. These are called as catecholamines. And next one is gonad hormones. There are, so in the male and the female type. One is ovary, female type of the hormone secreted, and the testis, male type of the hormone secretes. Okay, first come to the ovary. Progesterone, estrogen, angiotensin, and next inhibin. Next, testis, male type of the hormones like testosterone, estradiol, inhibin. And next, placenta. Placenta secretes progesterone and estrogens, HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, and inhibin, human placental lactogen. And next one is uterus, secretes prolactin and relaxin. And next one is other organs which secretes hormones like adipose tissue secretes leptin and estrogens. Okay, and next one is heart. Heart secretes atrial ANP, it is called as atrial natriuretic peptide. Atrial natriuretic peptide. And next is bone marrow secretes thrombopoietin. And next, if you see the local hormones like prostaglandins, all of the prostaglandins only, in that the first one, acetylcholine, serotonin, histamine, substance P, heparin, leptin and gastrointestinal hormones. And next one, the types of the hormones. All these are the hormones comes under the three groups. Majorly, it provides in under the three groups. And the steroid hormones, protein hormones, and next one is derivatives of the thyrosin. Come to the steroid hormones. The steroid hormones, like in the composition of the hormone, the steroid is present. Such type of the hormones called as steroid hormones. These hormones are aldosterone, 11-dehydrodeoxycorticosterone, cortisol, and corticosterone, testosterone, dehydrotestosterone, and dehydroprogesterone, and next androgenism, and next estrogen, progesterone. Okay, and next one is protein hormones or growth hormone. Pituitary hormones are comes under this group. Okay, like growth hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone, and follicular stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, and prolactin, antidiuretic hormone, oxytocin, parathormone, and calcitonin. And next one is insulin, glucagon, somatostatin, and pancreatic polypeptide. Next one is human chorionic gonadotropin and human chorionic somatotropin. These are the hormones under the protein group. And next one is derivatives of the thyrosin. That in the sense, thyroid group of the hormones comes under this group. Okay, right here, if you see this, okay, the thyroxine, triiodothyrosin, and that in the sense T3 and T4, and adrenaline, noradrenaline, dopamine comes under the derivatives of the thyrosin group. And if you see the complex, when the hormones come to the cell, there is a receptor. That hormone binds with this receptor of the cell. That is called as hormone receptor complex. Okay, this hormone receptor complex is varies for the different groups of the hormones. In case of the protein derivatives hormones, or the protein hormones, the hormone receptor complex is present in case of the cell membrane, and through the cell membrane it comes to the cytoplasm, and there is a second messenger, and the enzyme activation is in the cytoplasm. And next one is thyroid hormones. For the thyroid hormones, the nucleus receptors are present. Okay, the nucleus receptors are directly, so action is in the by the DNA, and through the mRNA it sends the message, and in the cytoplasm there is an action, enzyme action. Okay, and next one is steroid hormones. The steroid hormones are the hormones, it's complex, that in the sense the receptor is present in the cytoplasm. Okay, it binds with the receptors which are present in the cytoplasm. Okay, and the cytoplasmic receptor sends it information to the nucleus, to the DNA, and that DNA sends that information through the mRNA, and then there is a protein synthesis. Okay, like this the hormone receptor complex, how it works. Okay, and next one, so after the binding of this hormone with the receptor, and immediately there is releasing of the GDP and the GTP. Okay, GDP and the GTP, glutamine dipeptide and glutamine tripeptide. And by this, so in the, that is in the cell membrane, and after that in the cytoplasm what happens, so the adenyl cyclase, okay, adenyl cyclase, so there is releasing of that ATP, and the ATP is breakdown as the SCAMP, cyclic AMP, and this cyclic AMP works on the protein kinase A, and then there is a response of the hormone. Okay, that is what about that. And next one is come to the individual hormones and individual glands. And if you see this, the individual glands, the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is a small gland, but it is, this gland is majorly divides into two types. Okay, so one is the anterior pituitary and another one is posterior pituitary. And this anterior pituitary, posterior pituitary is developed by the kinds of the cells. Okay, and the regulation of the secretion by the hypothalamus. Okay, hypothalamus releases different kinds of the hormones, like thyroid releasing hormone, and next one is thyroid inhibins, and next one is development of the hormones, and all these are by the hypothalamus itself. Okay, and next is the secretion. If you see this diagram, we'll come to know, so what are the structures are present in the pituitary gland. Okay, the pituitary gland is divided into two types. One is anterior pituitary and another one is posterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary is also called as adenohypophysis, and the posterior pituitary is also called as neurohypophysis. So that the pituitary gland is called as hypophysis. Hypophysis is pituitary gland, adenohypophysis is anterior pituitary, and the posterior pituitary is called as neurohypophysis. This pituitary gland is divided by the three types of the layers, that is pars distalis, pars intermedia, and pars nervosa. Pars nervosa is a outermost layer of the posterior pituitary, and pars distalis is the layer for the anterior pituitary, and a layer which is separates these two glands, anterior pituitary and the posterior pituitary, that is called as pars intermedia. That in the sense, pars intermedia is a layer which separates the anterior pituitary and the posterior pituitary. Okay, and come to this pituitary gland attached with the hypothalamus. First come to the anterior pituitary. Okay, in the anterior pituitary, if you see this, the layers, two layers are present here, pars distalis and pars intermedia. Okay, and this secretes 6 types of the hormones: growth hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone or ACTH, and luteinizing hormone LH, follicular stimulating hormone FSH, and prolactin. These are the hormones secreted by the anterior pituitary. Okay, and next one is, if you see the action of this, okay, in case of the action of the anterior pituitary, so majorly comes to the growth hormone. The growth hormone mainly works on the metabolic actions like protein metabolism, lipid metabolism, and carbohydrate metabolism, and it influences the growth of the human being. Okay, and next one is, it works on the bone also. Okay, and this growth hormone is regulated by the hormones which are secreted by the hypothalamus. Okay, later on we'll come to know what it is. Okay, and next one is, see here. Okay, the hypothalamus releases growth hormone releasing hormone. Immediately the anterior pituitary gets activated, and then there is a secretion of the growth hormone. When this hormone is sufficient, immediately there is two types of the hormones are released. One is growth hormone inhibitory peptide, and another one is growth hormone inhibitory hormone. These two sends inhibitory impulses to the hypothalamus and as well as anterior pituitary gland, and then there is a stoppage of the growth hormone, and also by the somatostatin. Okay, like this. So the growth hormone secretion is stopped. Okay, that's what about the growth hormone. And next one is after this growth hormone, next one is thyroid stimulating hormone. The thyroid stimulating hormone, which is meant for the thyroid stimulation, for its secretion, and ACTH, which is meant for the ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone. It is a hormone which secretes a hormone for the secretion of the adrenal cortex, and luteinizing hormone and the FSH, follicular stimulating hormone. Two hormones for the menstrual cycle maintenance, pregnancy, and all those are maintained. And the prolactin, which secretes the milk, that is the prolactin. That's about the anterior pituitary. And next is posterior pituitary. The posterior pituitary, if you see the parts of this is two layers are present in this, pars intermedia and pars nervosa. Okay, and next one is hypothalamo-hypophyseal tract is also present in this. This is a neural tract, and this is a tract from the hypothalamus to and the posterior pituitary. And the hormones secreted by the posterior pituitary are, two hormones are secreted by the posterior pituitary. One is oxytocin and another one is ADH, antidiuretic hormone or the vasopressin. And next one is the antidiuretic hormone or the vasopressin is mainly for the concentration of the urine and the maintenance of the blood pressure, and the oxytocin is functioning for the two types. One is uterine contractions and another one is milk ejection reflex. Uterine contractions are during the parturition or during the delivery of the baby. And come to this, if you see these reactions, okay, the tract, this posterior pituitary generally won't secrete any hormone. The oxytocin and this vasopressin are secreted by the hypothalamus, and through the hypothalamo-hypophyseal tract, those hormones are poured into the posterior pituitary, and when it requires, those are released into the bloodstream. And this is what the situation of the posterior pituitary gland. And if you see here, in this, come to the oxytocin action. Oxytocin action are in two types. One is milk ejection reflex and another one is uterine contractions during the parturition. First come to the milk ejection reflex. When the mother's nipple suckling by the baby, immediately through the somatic nerve fibers, that is reached to the spinal cord and that is transmitted to the higher centers. And that higher centers activates the hypothalamus, and hypothalamus immediately releases the oxytocin. And this oxytocin through the hypothalamo-hypophyseal tract released into the posterior pituitary and released into the bloodstream from the posterior pituitary gland. Okay, right. And then there is a myoepithelial cells are present in the mammary glands. At the same time, so when it released into the bloodstream, oxytocin, when it released into the bloodstream, immediately it influences the prolactin for the secretion of the milk secretion. There is the milk secretion by the prolactin, and myoepithelial cells get contracted and the milk is fed to the baby. This is what the process of the oxytocin milk ejection reflex. And next one is uterine contractions. And the uterine contraction during the parturition is, so when after completion of the 9 months, when there is a parturition process, there is a contractions, uterine contractions from the fallopian tubes towards the cervix, the uterine contractions, and there is the expulsion of the baby from the vagina. That is the uterine contraction during the parturition. And another one is ADH. ADH and the vasopressin. ADH role is mainly in case of the concentration of the urine is maintained by the ADH, Antidiuretic Hormone, and the vasopressin which maintains the blood pressure. Okay, and next if you see the applied aspects of this pituitary gland, the hyperactivity of the anterior pituitary, hypoactivity of the anterior pituitary, hyperactivity of the posterior pituitary, hypoactivity of the posterior pituitary, and so hypoactivity of the anterior and the posterior pituitaries. These are the 5 conditions, and if you see this, so in that first come to the anterior pituitary. So if there is hypersecretion, then there is a more growth, that is called as gigantism. And next one is acromegaly. Before the fusion of the bones, there is a gigantism. After fusion of the bones, acromegaly. And next one is acromegalic gigantism. So before the fusion and after the fusion of the bones, that is called as acromegalic gigantism. And next is Cushing disease. It is pituitary origin, that is called as Cushing disease. This is by the hyperactivity of the anterior pituitary gland. And next one is hypoactivity, dwarfism, that in the sense short length. Okay. And next one is acromycria, after the fusion of the bones, acromycria. And next one is Simon's disease. This is the hypoactivity of the anterior pituitary. And next one is come to the posterior pituitary. If you see the posterior pituitary, syndrome of the SIA, that is called as SIA, syndrome of inappropriate secretion of the ADH. Okay, and next one is diabetes insipidus, by the hypoactivity of the posterior pituitary. Okay, and next one, if there is disorder by the both anterior and the posterior pituitary, hyperactivity, there is no disorder, and if there is, in case of the hypoactivity, that is a disorder like dystropia adipogenitalis. Okay, and next one is thyroid gland. Another gland is thyroid gland. This thyroid gland is mainly so for the secretion of the 3 types of the hormone, T3, T4 and the calcitonin. So T3, T4 are for the metabolic actions. So this thyroid gland is situated in the neck. It is called as butterfly gland. That in the sense it is like butterfly. The gland is like butterfly. 4 lobes are present on this. So this thyroid gland. Okay, right. This thyroid gland contains 2 types of the cells. One is follicular cells and another one is parafollicular cells. The follicular cells which forms a follicle like this diagram. Okay, so which forms the follicle by the follicular cells, and the parafollicular cells are present out of the follicle. Okay, and next the hormones from the thyroid gland are T3, nothing but triiodothyrosin, and T4, it is also called as thyroxine or tetraiodothyrosin, and next one is calcitonin. And storage of the synthesis of the thyroid hormones will discuss, and storage of the thyroid hormones in the thyroid gland only, and releasing of the thyroid hormones by the, so when it releases, in the sense when the metabolic activities, at that time it releases. And if you see the synthesis of the thyroid hormones, there are 6 steps involved in the synthesis of the thyroid gland, okay, secretion. So the first one is Thyroglobulin synthesis, and next one is iodide trapping, and next one is oxidation of the iodide, and next transport of the iodine into the follicular cavity, and next one is iodination of the thyrosin, and after that coupling reaction. And if you see this activity, first in the bloodstream, so while transporting of the all the types of the substances, the iodide is also transported. So while this transportation of the iodide is trapped by the thyroid gland follicular cells, trapped by the follicular cells of the thyroid gland. And next one is, so thyroglobulin synthesis in the follicle of the, in the lumen of the follicle, there is synthesis of the thyroglobulin. So whatever the iodide is trapped by the follicular cells, that is oxidized by the peroxidase enzyme, and oxidation process by the peroxidase enzyme, and it converted as the iodine. That is the third step. And next, this iodination of the thyrosin, thyroglobulin synthesis thyrosin, and this thyrosin binds with the iodine, that is called as iodination of the thyrosin. And after this, there is a coupling reaction like this. So if the thyrosin is binds with the single molecule or the single atom of the iodine, that is called as MIT, monoiodothyrosin. And second one is, if the thyrosin is binds with the 2 molecules of the iodine, that is called as diiodothyrosin. And if DIT, that in the sense diiodothyrosin binds with the monoiodothyrosin, that is called as T3, triiodothyrosin. And next one is, if MIT binds with the DIT, that is called as reverse T3. DIT plus MIT is T3, triiodothyrosin, and MIT plus DIT is reverse T3 it is. Okay, and next one is DIT plus DIT, diiodothyrosin binds with the another diiodothyrosin, that is called as tetraiodothyrosin or the thyroxine or the T4. Okay, and if you see this, the thyroid system, so there is increase in the metabolism, and that by the releasing of the hormones TRH, thyroid releasing hormone, by the hypothalamus, and there is releasing of the thyroid stimulating hormone by the anterior pituitary, and then there is a secretion of the thyroid hormones. Okay, and next one is, if we see the applied aspects of this thyroid gland, okay, if there is hyperactivity, that is called as hyperthyroidism. There are 2 types. One is Graves' disease, it is autoimmune disorder, and another one is thyroid adenoma. And next one is hypothyroidism, leads to 2 types of the disorders. One is myxedema and another one is cretinism. If there is the increased enlargement of the gland, and at the same time another one is exophthalmosis and the goiter. Exophthalmos in the sense protrusion of the eyes comes forward, that is called as exophthalmos. And another one is goiter, enlargement of the thyroid gland is called as goiter. This goiter is majorly in 3 types. One is toxic goiter, non-toxic goiter, and endemic goiter. 3 types of the goiter are there. So enlargement of the thyroid gland is there is no problem at all. Okay, but the secretion is also increased, then it becomes toxic. Okay, non-toxic goiter, there is no problem, that in the sense only enlargement of the thyroid gland. Okay, the lobes are enlarged. Okay, that is non-toxic type. And another one is toxic goiter, the secretion is increased, and at the same time there is enlargement of the gland. And in this, the multinodular goiter is also one of the important. The multinodules are present in the thyroid gland. The gland is swelled like this. Okay, so come too much forward, that is called as multinodular goiter. And endemic goiter, it is also one of the important goiter. Okay, next one is parathyroid gland. Parathyroid gland is situated on the thyroid gland. This parathyroid gland secretes four types of the four glands are present on the four lobes. Posterior inner side of the thyroid gland, four lobes are present, and on that four lobes button-like structured glands are present. Those are called as parathyroid gland. This parathyroid gland secretes parathormone. This parathormone mainly involves in the process of the calcium metabolism and the regulation of the calcium levels in the blood. Okay, right. If you see the blood calcium levels, so what it contains and what is the work in the cells? It majorly works for the bone, and also it is important for the as a electrolyte balance in the body. Okay, so if you see this parathormone is a PTH secreted by the parathyroid glands. Okay, right. How it regulates in the sense, the first see the calcium levels in the body. If you see the calcium levels, okay, so if there is decrease in the calcium level, there are two types of the glands. One is parathyroid gland and the other one is intestine. Intestine and the kidneys releases 125 dehydroxycholecalciferol, and this and the parathormone, which in the resorption of the calcium from the bone by the parathormone and decreased activity of the urine output. That in the sense calcium level is decreased in the urine output by the kidneys activity. By these two, the calcium level when it decreased, PTH and 125 dehydroxycholecalciferol, these two works for the increases the calcium levels in the blood. Okay, and next one is when the calcium level is increased, then the calcitonin, which is secreted from the thyroid gland. By that, there is a deposition of the calcium in the bones, and then the calcium level comes to the normal range. Okay, and if you see the disorders of the parathyroid gland, in this the hyperparathyroidism and the hypoparathyroidism. Hypoparathyroidism leads to hypocalcemia, and hyperparathyroidism leads to hypercalcemia. Increased calcium levels in the body is called as hypercalcemia, and decreased calcium levels in the body is called as hypocalcemia. That is because of the hypocalcemia is because of the hypoparathyroidism. Hypercalcemia is because of the hyperparathyroidism. Okay, and in case of the adults, that is osteomalacia, and in case of the children's, that is rickets or rickettsia. Okay, and next, calcitonin is also works for the same thing, and next the regulation of the secretion as well as we saw, and in the next diagram we'll come to know what it is. And see this, the types of the calcium is resorbed calcium, stored calcium, deposited calcium by the dietary maintenance, and so whatever is going out and whatever is stored inside and whatever it is moving from the bone to extracellular fluid and extracellular fluid to bone, resorption, deposition, and all types of the calcium are present. Okay, and this is what the calcium regulation metabolism by the calcitonin, parathormone, and 125 hydroxycholecalciferol. Okay, and next one is the homeostatic process is completely by the deposition of the, when there is increase in the calcium level, deposition of the calcium and when there is decrease in the calcium levels in the blood, then there is resorption of the calcium to the blood. Okay, and through the dietary requirement also some of the calcium is so transported in between the extracellular fluid and the intracellular fluid. Okay, and next one is endocrine part of the pancreas. What is this pancreas? Pancreas undergo for the two types of the functions. One is exocrine pancreas and another one is endocrine pancreas. Exocrine part of the pancreas secretes pancreatic juice, which is undergo for the action on the food material, that is the digestive function. And the endocrine part of the pancreas, so for the secretion of the hormones like insulin, glucagon, somatostatin, so which regulates the sugar levels, blood sugar levels, nothing but glucose levels. Okay, and here this endocrine part of the pancreas is islets of the Langerhans. Islets of the Langerhans of the pancreas secretes insulin, glucagon, somatostatin and the pancreatic polypeptide. Okay, and if you see the glucose levels, these glucose levels are maintained by the two hormones. One is insulin and another one is glucagon. Insulin suppresses the glucose levels and the glucagon increases the glucose levels. So always there is the increase and decrease. These two are maintained. That in the sense there is a balance should maintain by this glucose levels. That in the sense the insulin and at the same time glucagon both are in the equal position. That in the sense these two are maintained by a hormone, that is what the somatostatin. That in the sense what? Somatostatin maintains insulin and the glucagon levels, and insulin maintains, so insulin suppresses the glucose levels and the glucagon increases the glucose levels. And these two hormones, insulin and the glucagon, are maintained by the somatostatin. Okay, right. Come to this thing. There are three types of the cells, four types of the cells are present in this. A cells are alpha cells, so which secretes glucagon. And another type of the cells, B cells are beta cells, which secretes insulin. And next one is D cells or delta cells, so which secretes somatostatin. And next one is F cells or PP cells, so these cells secretes pancreatic polypeptide. Okay, and next one is, if you see the difference between the insulin and glucagon, if the source of secretion is from the islets of the Langerhans and the glucagon is also from the cells of the islets of the Langerhans. Alpha cells glucagon and the beta cells insulin, source of secretion. And next one is action on the carbohydrate metabolism. If you see this, in case of the insulin, it decreases the blood glucose levels and increases the peripheral utilization of the glucose, and next increasing the glycogenesis, and next preventing the glycogenolysis, and next it prevents the gluconeogenesis. Insulin. And whereas come to the glucagon, it increases the facilitation of the glucose and it increases the glycogenolysis, and next it increases the gluconeogenesis. Okay, and next action on the protein metabolism, so facilitates the amino acid transports. In case of the insulin, it facilitates the amino acid transport, and next accelerate the protein metabolism and the protein synthesis, and next one is prevents the protein catabolism, and next one is prevent the conversion of the proteins into the glucose. Because if there is conversion of the proteins into the glucose, in the sense obviously there is an increase in the glucose levels. That is not a function of insulin. That's why it prevents the conversion of the proteins into the glucose. Okay, that's about insulin. And next one is, if you see the glucose, it increases the protein conversion into the glucose, and at the same time it increases the transportation of amino acids into the liver cells. Okay, and next action and the fat metabolism, it facilitates the amino acid transportation, and at the same time it increases the synthesis of storage of the fats. And next one is there is no ketogenic effect with this insulin in case of the fat metabolism. And whereas come to this glucagon, it promotes ketogenesis and it increases the lipolysis. Okay, and next one is blood fatty acids are decreased by the insulin and increased by the glucagon. And next one is hypersecretion leads to diabetes in case of the insulin, and hypersecretion of the insulin leads to suppression of the glucose, and that is what hypoglycemia it is, and hyperglycemia, that is in the sense glucose levels are increased by the glucagon. Okay, and next one is hyperpancreatitis leads to hyperglycemia, that in the sense the glucose levels are increased. And next one is hypopancreatitis leads to hypoglycemia, in which case the glucose levels are decreased. Okay, and this diabetes is in two types. So one is diabetes mellitus and another one is diabetes insipidus. In this diabetes mellitus, there are two types of the diabetes mellitus. One is primary diabetes mellitus and another one is secondary diabetes mellitus. In case of primary diabetes mellitus, in case of blood, only in the blood, the glucose levels are increased. And in case of secondary diabetes mellitus, in case of blood as well as in the urine, also the glucose levels are increased. That is what's diabetes mellitus. Okay, and next one is adrenal gland. These adrenal glands are also called as suprarenal glands because these adrenal glands are present on the surface of the kidneys. That's why it is called as suprarenal glands. This adrenal gland is divided into two types. One is adrenal cortex and another one is adrenal medulla. Okay, so adrenal cortex contains three types of the layers. So that is zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata and zona reticularis. Three types of the layers are present. Okay, so zona glomerulosa releases mineralocorticoids and zona fasciculata secretes glucocorticoids and zona reticularis layer secretes androgens or the sex hormones. And so three types of the layer in three types of the functions, that in the sense glucocorticoids by the zona glomerulosa secretes mineralocorticoids, zona fasciculata secretes mineralocorticoids and zona reticularis secretes sex hormones or the androgens. And after that, so another gland, that is what adrenal medulla, in the middle of the adrenal gland. Okay, first come to the adrenal gland importance. So here there are four types of the hormones are secreted by the adrenal glands, as we know. So glucocorticoids, mineralocorticoids, sex hormones or the androgens, and another one is catecholamines by the adrenal medulla. Okay, so glucocorticoids is nothing but glucocorticoids, mineralocorticoids and the sex hormones. Okay, so first come to this corticoids. Okay, so all these are steroid hormones. In this, the important hormones are, one is aldosterone and another one is cortisol. Aldosterone is also called as a life-threatening hormone or the life-protecting hormone, and next one is cortisol is life-saving hormone. Life-protecting hormone is aldosterone and life-saving hormone is cortisol. Okay, and come to this, the mineralocorticoids, how it forms, and the glucocorticoids, how it forms. Come to see this. So if you see the hormones, how the sex hormones are involved and how these are derived from the first, in case of sex hormone, first the progesterone, and progesterone to testosterone, testosterone to estrogen is secreted. Okay, and next one is mineralocorticoids are in two types. So one is aldosterone and another one is 125 hydroxy calciferol, and next one is cortisol, and next one is 11 deoxy calcitriol. Okay, and these are the hormones secreted by the different types of the layers of the adrenal cortex. And so there is a deficiency of the aldosterone. It leads to increase in the potassium concentration in the extracellular fluid, and by that there is cardiac toxicity. Immediately there is arrhythmia of the heart and leads to cardiac death. It leads to the death. Okay, and by that there is a circulatory shock that also leads to the death. Okay, so decreased activity of the aldosterone leads to death finally. Okay, and next one is that completely depends upon the blood potassium levels. Okay, and next one is another thing is renin angiotensinogen system. This is also one of the important in case of the aldosterone ras it is. Okay, so we'll discuss this in the CVS, cardiovascular system, in detail, ras it is. But just remember aldosterone, which stimulates the blood pressure, which controls the blood pressure levels by the stimulating the vasomotor centers. Okay, right. And next one is regulation. If you see the regulation, there is the hypothalamus secretes ACRH, adrenocortico releasing hormone. By that, anterior pituitary gland releases ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone. By that, adrenal cortex releases three types of the hormones, mineraloglucocorticoids, and the sex hormones are the androgens. Okay, so that is what this adrenal gland, adrenal cortex, and the hyperactivity of this adrenal cortex leads to Cushing syndrome. Don't get confused in between the Cushing syndrome and the Cushing disease. Cushing disease is a pituitary organ, that is ACTH. Okay, and the Cushing syndrome is this adrenal cortex organ, that is Cushing syndrome. And next hyperaldosteronism, and next adrenogenital syndrome. Three disorders are in this hyperactivity. And next, hyperactivity of the adrenal cortex leads to Addison's disease or the chronic adrenal insufficiency. And next one is congenital adrenal hypoplasia, or the disorders by the hypoactivity of the aldosterone. Okay, and next one is adrenal medulla. Adrenal medulla is in between the adrenal cortex. Okay, it secretes catecholamines. So that in the sense, so it secretes neurotransmitters like adrenaline, noradrenaline, and the dopamine. Adrenaline is also called as epinephrine, noradrenaline is also called as norepinephrine, and dopamine is obviously dopamine it is. Okay, and so if you see the plasma levels of the different hormones of this, okay, that is first come to the adrenaline. Adrenaline is about 3 micrograms per deciliter, and the noradrenaline is about 30 micrograms per deciliter, and the dopamine is about 3.5 micrograms per deciliter. Okay, and the half-life of the catecholamines is maximum about 2 minutes. Okay, and next one is, if you see how these are derived, in the sense first dopa to dopamine, dopamine to adrenaline, adrenaline to noradrenaline are secreted. Okay, and if you see how this metabolism or of the adrenaline and noradrenaline, adrenaline by the comet, okay, so meta-adrenaline is formed, and by that, so meta-adrenaline is undergo for the oxidation process, and by that there is a conversion of the valine-mandelic acid. Okay, and next one is noradrenaline is converted as the meta-noradrenaline, and by the oxidation process, there is conversion of that meta-adrenaline into the meta-noradrenaline into valine-mandelic acid. Okay, and next one is by the hyper and the hypoactivity of this, so the person will get pheochromocytoma. And next one is pineal gland. It is a smallest gland in the body. It is situated just beside the hypothalamus. It secretes a hormone, that is the melatonin. Melatonin is secreted by the pineal gland, not melanin, it is melatonin. Melatonin maintains the circadian rhythms, that in the sense sexual activity in the human being. In the daytimes it secretes very less, and in the night times, that in the sense when there is the dark, then the secretion is more. That is the major activity of the pineal gland. That in the sense this activity, this circadian rhythm activity is maintained by this pineal gland. That is about the pineal gland. And next one is thymus gland. Thymus is just situated just beside the heart, it is, okay. And this thymus gland secretes thymin. It is important for the metabolic actions. And next one is some of the local hormones are there, and like kidneys releases, the kidney secretes erythropoietin, so which is important for the RBC production, thrombopoietin, which is important for the thrombocytes production, and the renin, which is important in case of the blood pressure maintenance for the RAS mechanism, and 125 dihydroxycholecalciferol, and next is prostaglandins. And after that, the heart secretes ANP, atrial natriuretic peptide, and the brain secretes, so brain natriuretic peptide, C-type natriuretic peptide. And next one is some of the local hormones like prostaglandins, acetylcholine, serotonin, histamine, substance P, heparin, leptin, and the gastrointestinal hormones which are functioning for the gastric motility and the digestive function. Okay, so this is what all about the endocrinology, and this is what are the different kinds of the functions of the hormones, and what are the glands function, and what are the hormones function, what is the hypoactivity and what is hyperactivity, what is all about this endocrinology as per my knowledge. Thank you very much.